Hello, hello. Wait just a few minutes here. Let everybody get the notification and get on here. Whew. Hope everybody's been doing good. There's Anne Marie. Okay, why doesn't it do that? Hello, hello.
Hey. Hey, Daryl. How are you? Hope I can get down there to Timberville again sometime soon. I've been watching all the good stuff that's been going on down there as usual.
Hi, Nicole. Just give a few minutes for everybody to get the notifications. Sometimes when you don't do it from the computer and you do the reminder, then it's like doing a whole new thing, I think. I think that's what's messing everyone up.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right.
Hey, Molly.
There's a few people getting on.
Yes.
Molly.
Awesome.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time just sitting here staring. There's nothing worse than on the replay. You got to wait 10 minutes just to get going.
That's right.
Okay. So we're going to talk about in and out of the quiet place tonight. We were both kind of wrestling with even doing a broadcast tonight. We were both just, we've kind of been unplugged and off of social media and just kind of in our own quiet places and spaces. And as soon as we started talking about maybe not doing this, the Lord was like, no, I want you to do this. And this is what I want you to talk about. Really what he wanted, what he was telling me to talk about was just my own personal testimony about this quiet time. Because to be honest with you, I really struggled with it. It was a little bit of a battle for me. And I'm a big believer in everybody has a testimony in a lot of different things. And each of those testimonies, hi, Karen. Hi, Rebecca. And each of those testimonies, when we share them, they become somebody else's prophetic word, somebody else's prophetic encouragement. And I never want to suffocate that out. I don't ever want to block that. And so I'm just going to be real with you that I struggled with this. So the Lord just prompting me for a little while to just kind of, step back, unplug from social media and just really just fast a lot of things. And I mean, he always has my yes, but I really struggled with this, because we're in this moment where, things are really exciting and we're moving into this launch and these new things. And so when he started talking to me about pulling out and going back into the quiet, I got I got fearful. That's really what it was. I got fearful, and I fought that because I was afraid, and I was afraid of it because I've been in a very long period of time of quiet, and I didn't want to go back into hiding. That was my mindset. It was, I don't want to go back into hiding. I've been there for so long. But it was like, as soon as I said that, hey, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Maribel. And some of you guys popping on here. Kathy. I said hi to Rebecca. Okay. I just didn't want to miss anybody. So as soon as I started saying, Lord, I don't want to go back into the quiet, it's like I finally just felt like I kind of come out of that cave. And I started kind of seeing the sunshine and I kind of started feeling that fresh breeze. And then he's telling me to go back into the quiet. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go back into hiding. And so during this little bickering that I was doing to the Lord, he spoke so loudly to me. And I just wanted to share with you what he said. He said, I'm not putting you back, because this isn't just for me. This is for a lot of us, I think, in this moment. He said, I'm not putting you back into the cave you came from. You know, and I think that's where that fear was, you know, that fear was coming from. So I'm not putting you back into the cave that you came from. You won't fit because of the growth I've given you. I just want you to come away with me. And immediately after I heard him say that to me, he gave me 2 scriptures. And I'm just going to read those to you. They're from the Passion Translation. The first one is Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 2. Open your heart, my darling, deeper still to me. Will you receive me this dark night? There is no one else but you, my friend, my equal. I need you this night to arise and come be with me. You are my pure, loyal dove, a perfect partner for me, my flawless one. Will you arise? And that just absolutely wrecked my heart. That's like the Lord talking to us. He just wants the quiet with us, you know, even in the midst of all this exciting stuff and, you know, participating in that. He's like, just come away with me, you know. And I shared a little bit of a word that was about that earlier today. And then the next scripture was chapter 4, verse 2. It says, when I look at you, I see how you have taken my fruit and tasted my word. Your life has become clean and pure, like a lamb washed and newly shorn. You now show grace and balance with truth on display. You know, and none of that happens when we are out moving about and doing all this stuff. That stuff happens when you're in the quiet. So, you know, without the periods of quiet, you know, we have to be willing to move in and out of the quiet when he prompts us. It doesn't matter what season we're in. It doesn't matter what we're doing in life and purpose and all this stuff. We have to be willing to move in and out of the quiet as he prompts us, because that's part of his plan and purpose for us. So we can't fight it. We can't fear it. He's not going, you know, it doesn't mean he's withholding his promises from you. You know, and just trust that, you know, this doesn't mean that it's a delay. And, you know, that his timing is perfect on all of this. And I think you had something to say about that as well, Anne Marie.
Yeah. Just Karen down there real quick. So my car is a lot of my quiet place. You know, that's the quiet place my husband has. I mean, he really, like, that's where he spends his time, you know, really investing in the quiet place where there are no distractions and he can pray and go into his quiet. You know, it just seemed, you know, what you were saying was that we, you know, basically it's giving our self permission to step away from the noise, and we need to be able to do that. It's almost like we almost feel as if we need to be out doing everything we can, but sometimes God's not calling us to do everything we can because we have to be refreshed. And so, you know, that's a lot of what he had said to me. I was just feeling like, and I looked back and I figured out that like a year ago in March, it was almost the same thing. It's almost that topsy-turvy, like kind of like you just really don't know what's going on. The wind comes and it's blowing through and you just get turned upside down. And it just seemed like one attack after another that was coming against what was seeming, you know, to be coming into fruition. Everything was kind of coming against that. And for my family, a lot of that is coming out of a lot of financial struggle of the past. And it was like one thing after the other for me. And, you know, health with my daughter, whether it was finances of getting nickeled and dimed with that, or like today, shingles being blown off the roof and all those type of things. And so I just really wanted to go into that place where I could really cry out to him and just be like, when is this going to be over? Because I'm always trying to trust in him, but we can't, you know, deny the fact that we do get fearful. You know, it's not where we're not trusting him. It's just scary because it doesn't seem like, you know, nothing's truly in our control. But when things are all happening all at once like that, we get kind of just thrown topsy-turvy. And so anyway, I just needed to be in a place where basically I fasted. And I know that Amy, it was kind of crazy because I was kind of feeling like I really wanted to step into that quiet place. And again, I couldn't give myself permission to do that until all of a sudden Amy said, "Oh, I think I'm just going to go off of social media today." And that was like, I was thinking Wednesday through Sunday, that's what I would do. And then all of a sudden it was like Monday. And she's like, "I think I'm going to go off of social media today." And I'm like, I was going to do that. and and then it gave me permission to do it. And we really don't need that permission to be able to go into a quiet place. And I know we're coming from two different places on this, and I have, I'm both angles to come from, but a lot of what Amy was talking about is when we give ourselves permission to step away and be in the company of one, which is God, and, and being in that special quiet place where we only hear his voice. The scripture came to me, the Psalm 31:19, "How wonderful are the good things you keep for those who honor you. Everyone knows how good you are, how securely you protect those who trust you." It's in those times that we are fearful that we do need to trust him. And in that trust, we need to honor him. And through that honoring, we begin to see the good things that he has for us. Those things start to come back into our vision. And I'm kind of now skipping around. I apologize for that. I kind of get all over the place because I want to say everything at once on here, but that just goes along with, I was been reading some books by Michael Van Vlymen, who's a great seer in the spirit. And one of the things he said was, when we're trying to see in the spirit, and that's something like I've been developing over the past 2 years and seeing more and more in that, when we're focusing on it, and hi, Marty, when we're focusing on that, we can be in our quiet place. Again, I'm going off on a rabbit trail, but it all ties together in the end. When we're there in our quiet place and we're trying to see into that, I've learned how to see like the ripples of things happening in the air. And then, more and more things start to develop in front of me. And he said, you can be sitting there for long periods of time. It's something I just read last weekend, that you can be sitting there for long periods of time and your mind just goes off and wanders. And it does when you're trying to stay focused. And he made a great point of if you're speaking God's words out loud, your mind's staying on that. And so I really tried to abide by some of these scriptures by truly honoring him and trusting him. And so both doing that in my quiet place to actually be able to step into the things he has for me as a seer. And then just also just in everyday life, I need to be, speaking the things that I want to be happening. So I as I've been in this quiet, I've been saying scriptures, keeping me focused on the fact that I don't need my mind out here wandering to 20 different things. I need to stay focused on his word. And that keeps me focused into the place in front of me to actually move forward in that seer gift. And that goes with staying in his word and trusting him to move me forward in anything that I'm walking into in life. And that has to do with our family's everyday life or with Raw and Real, so I just really felt like that time of stepping away, it went along with the 2 Corinthians 7:1, where it says, "All these promises are made to us, my dear friends. So then let us purify ourselves from everything that makes body or soul unclear, and let us be completely holy by living in awe of God." I just felt like I had been spending so much time in the environment around me that it was starting to cling to me. And it's not that I'm in bad places or whatever, but there's so much noise in the world. Wherever you turn on the TV, there's noise, bad things happening, things that we might not necessarily agree with, and our spirits are coming in. We can be at a PTA meeting and have just lots of noise. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we're on our TV or whatever it is, they're all distractions and they're all keeping us from, the one true thing that we need to be concentrating on. And it just came to mind, like some teachers have been sending out, emails about kids having their cell phones too much in class. And I'm like, why are they even allowed to have them with them? Like they need to be like locked away in the backpack or the bag or the locker or wherever, because they will be a distraction no matter what. So sometimes it's time to put these things away. And I just felt like when I stepped off of social media last week, it felt so good to kind of like purge myself of all the noise, like actually cleanse myself. And I actually, I just wanted to, I guess, cleanse my palate in a way and be ready to, taste and see something new, just kind of like refresh my spirit in that way. Too bad I didn't have any like orange sherbet. Isn't that what they serve at Chinese restaurants? So, sorry.
I don't know if it's always something.
Yeah, something, something. So to cleanse my
Yeah,
palate.
I was pretty much like that too. I really enjoy being on social media and interacting with people. And, that's kind of like my social time. And so, but it's also, where I do some feeding, like we know a lot of really great teachers and ministers that are, sharing, their teachings and their revelations and that kind of stuff. And I began to just kind of see myself like trying to, read whatever word. Hi, Suzanne. Um, read the words that they were putting out there or watching their videos. And it just all started, and this is not them, this was me. It all just started sounding like noise to me. And I think I just hit like this level of overload, where the Lord was saying, all of this stuff is really great. And, and you're doing your best to have some balance, but the balance is coming from like too many things. Like you've got too much on the plate. And I really just want you to just kind of come back and just listen to me for a little while. And, and it's not anything, like I said, it wasn't anything negative that I was reading. It wasn't, a bunch of junk in my news feed. It was just that clanging gong cymbal stuff, like, that Corinthians 13 talks about. It was just becoming noise to me. And, and that's part of what I was feeling really torn with, because it's like, oh, but I really love listening to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And Lord is like, but I want you to love listening to me. Yeah. And that's what got me, because, in the midst of all of this stuff, we're in the, talking about, like he's given me words and other prophetic voices that have been talking about this launching and this new season. And I'm like, but what if I feel like I'm going to miss out on something. And the Lord is just like, you're going to miss out if you don't come back. You've got to just step back and get rid of, even though it's positive, good noise, quote unquote noise, it's not his voice. Right. In that intimate time, it's still his voice being spoken through those other people and those other words, but it's not that one-on-one. And that one-on-one is more powerful than any teaching, any conversation, any prophetic word broadcast, any of that. You've got to have that one-on-one. And that's really what got me. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can't do in my life on any day of the week without my quiet. And sometimes he's just going to be like, okay, yeah, we have our quiet time every day, but I want more. If you're asking me for more, I'm asking you for more. And that's really been where I have been. I'm like, Lord, I want more of you. I want more of you. I want my eyes to see further and wider and deeper. And I want my ears to hear more. And yet I wasn't willing to give more room outside of my set morning quiet time. And that's really where he challenged me. He's like, it's a relationship thing. You want more, you spend more time. And so there, oh man, I mean, that's just where he got me. And, if I'm looking for other voices outside of God's, then everything moving forward is going to be ineffective. Absolutely. And, that's a pivotal thing. Like, I mean, I know we all seek to hear his voice and go with his prompting. And I think sometimes in the search of hearing his voice, we're also listening to other voices. And he does use those other voices to confirm things for us. But if we're not going to him first all the time, because I did find myself postponing my quiet time with him to watch this, read this, whatever. I wasn't putting him first. And it's going to be a different conviction for everybody. I do want to say that. Yeah. But, it's just, I just really feel like the pressing to come in and out of our quiet times, sometimes it's short, sometimes it's longer. Like I still don't even really, I'm still really not even fully back on social media. I'm not spending as much time on it as I was. And I don't know if that's going to be a permanent thing, but it's definitely what God has me doing right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm told, like, I thought I would feel devastated by it, because I absolutely love everybody that the Lord has connected me to. And I want to see what's going on in their world. And I want to comment and see their pictures and all this stuff. But the Lord was just like, no, we gotta have that, because, if we're going to move into this launch, I got to write this down or I'm going to forget. Yeah. So, in the midst of our launching, this is what he had me write. In the midst of our launching, we have to get recalibrated. We have to have that quiet so we're not hearing any other noise. So yeah, it's just the recalibration that he takes us through. So even in the launch, like I felt like I was going to miss out on something, right?
Yeah.
That's that fear. But even in the midst of the launch, even in the midst of all that movement and all of that excitement, he's going to say, hey, come away with me. I just want to talk with you just a little bit longer before you take that next step. And I think as long as you're sensitive to his promptings, his word, it's going to be a much easier and pain-free launching. Did you have something to add to that?
I was just,
you're like, wait a minute.
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't. I went like that. I'm sorry. But, that's okay. So, for me, it's like, I was looking at 1 John 2:27, where it says, you have received the Holy Spirit and he lives within you. So you don't need anyone to teach you what is true, for the Spirit teaches you everything you need to know. And what he teaches is true. It's not a lie. So just as he has taught you, remain in fellowship with Christ. And we look at that, that's friendly association. And who is my best friend? Christ is my best friend. We have the same interest because he created my interest. He always wants to be spending time with me. And he knows, what his plans are for me better than anybody else knows. And I always feel this goes back to when we've spoken in the past about, hey, Xenia, hey, Sylvia. This all goes back to, in the past when we've talked about, I got distracted. Darn. What does it go back in the past to? Oh, well, I'll just move on from there. I need to not read the comments. That is so bad of me. But we need to just be listening to his voice. Like, when we were saying in the past, like if someone, all those words out there and trying to figure out whether the corporate words are for us or not for us and that type of thing. I have really, really learned, and I want to address something that Suzanne said here in a minute, but I really want to learn, that I am just trying to, I need to stop reading the comments. I need to turn my phone off. I'm looking at that. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that I really have learned over the past couple of years that there is a season that there might be a voice that is speaking to me. And I know at one point, I really, was listening to Darren Canning a few years ago. And then it was like Nate, where like everything Nate said was on point. And, anything outside of that was confirmation, and then they're all doing the funny faces now. And I just, we're not going to turn this into a laughing session again. And you know, I just seem to have those voices that will speak to me. And then, like you said, everything else out there just really seems like noise. So I try to kind of focus in, and it's not that it's bad noise, because it speaks to somebody else who needs to hear it. I'm just kind of narrowing down what is actually speaking into my life. And more recently, I have found like it really, my spirit leeches on to just one voice at a time. And like I'm finding now that, you know, I took that time off of Facebook, so I ended up knowing which voice was actually speaking confirmation to me of what I was hearing from God. And I went ahead and had that sent to my email, so I actually didn't have to hop on Facebook to find that voice. So thank you. I don't know if you're talking to me or Amy, but we'll both take the compliment. See, I'm reading again. You know, I really just feel like we need to be listening to him and just him. So just like you know, he speaks to me in my quiet time. And, you know, that Jeremiah 29:13, you seek me and you find me when you seek me with all of your heart. I needed my seeking to be with all of my heart during that time. And I really wanted to focus it on that. And it's been so good to feel that way. And he just said, just simply turn your thoughts and focus on me amidst the noise and even the interruption of your quiet time. Pray for my peace and the peace you desire, and I promise to allow it to flow freely and overpower any disruption the enemy sends your way. Don't allow him to cause chaos in your plans. When you turn your focus um, to me, I will always realign your day, correcting anything that did not go the way you may have planned. When I do this, the result of your labor will be more fruitful, because I anointed the production of it with my presence and glory. I make all things good, even the smallest details, so that you may see your devotion and connecting with me bring about the desires of your heart. I allow you to move freely in your days. When you choose to direct your eyes, thoughts, and actions to me rather than the world around you, I move on your behalf so that you may accomplish all things, even in your time of lack and provision. And, you know, it's so true when we're focusing just on him. It's just like I was saying a little earlier with Michael Van Vlymen's book, like if we're focusing just on him and we're doing our best to keep, you know, blinders on to everything else, that's when we're really able to see more. And that I was excited that over this period of quiet time, I wasn't just able to focus more on what he was speaking to me and confirming through this one prophetic voice, but I was also beginning to see more in the spirit, because I began to truly focus on him during that quiet time and what was happening around me in the spiritual realm. And I was able to grow even a little bit more in that. I wanted to go back real quick to a comment that Suzanne Trust had made a little earlier, and she was talking about taking the workshop Found. And I'm guessing, Suzanne, that you're talking about Nate and Christie's Found course that they have. And I do want to say that 2 years ago, right around this time, was when I kind of bumped into Nate on social media, and he was just launching those classes. And I have to say that they were truly workshops that launched me into being more focused during that time, so that I would not be all over the place. I mean, they really led you with bullet points of do this, do this, do this. And you really were able to stay focused on exactly what he was talking to you about in that time. And so, Suzanne, if you're led to take one of those, I highly, highly recommend it. I know, like, out of the 4, Found is the first one. Voyage of Awakening, which is now, it's just called Awakening, truly, like, just wrecked me as far as helping me get healed from so many things. So I highly recommend any of those courses that they offer. So what's Sarah saying here?
Something good as always.
I was blown away. We got, yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, you know, sometimes we start to, we kind of start to watch everyone and what they're doing and what they're saying. And we forget that our journey is an individual one. And like for me, you know, the unplugging and stepping away and going into that extended period of quiet, it felt like a very inopportune moment. You know, it didn't feel like, oh, this is so perfectly planned.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I want you to do it now, you know, so it felt very abrupt.
Yes.
You know, like, nope, cutting you off, ripping you up, you know, and, but you know, that's how the Lord works with me. That's how he talks to me.
Yeah.
And everything it's so divinely appointed and purposed. And I knew that he was desperate to get me unplugged and away. And I was, you know, definitely at that place, you know, like I talked about earlier, it just all seemed like noise to me. And it bothered my heart and my spirit when I would read or hear, you know, someone talking and sharing a very powerful word, and I just kind of sat there like, why am I not getting this,
right,
like, revelation? Why am I not like feeling the excitement? You know, because I do feel a lot of things. Like that's the initial thing that I do, is I instantly just feel something. And it was just dead space. And that was the confirmation for me that the Lord was like, yeah, all that stuff's good, but I want you. And, you know, and it's like, even in the most inopportune moments and times, if we're listening to his promptings and we're being obedient, you know, we've talked about this before, like our yes being yes to
mm-hmm.
him, and for, that we're going to be willing, even though I wasn't at the very beginning, you know, willing to go and do what he wants us to do, even if it's something that maybe we're not all that excited about. You know,
right.
I wasn't very excited about that unplugging, but you know, after like the first 24 hours, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good. I totally needed this. Like it was just such good medicine for my soul, just having, like, it was just quiet.
Yes.
And that's really rare in my life because I have 4 children. So, but even with there was still so much more quiet. And, you know, like my husband says a lot, like before, because we'd have discussions about time on social media and all this stuff. You know, he's like, you know, you see this a lot where even though it's just like, say it's just us sitting on the couch, it's really us and how many thousands of people that you've constantly got in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a distraction that comes in and robs time and intimacy, not just from you and God in your own quiet time, but it can rob you of quiet intimacy with your spouse, with your kids, and all of that. And I just really felt the need to share that for some reason. So maybe that's like to encourage someone to just maybe set times, because I did have moments of just being imbalanced with my time on social media, and so now we've made it. Here's the charging dock station. So when you're home,
right,
you know, all the phones go there. Nobody's, you know, on them, and I'm not checking social media. My husband's not on, you know, all that stuff. Yes. Yep. That's exactly right, Lori. That's exactly right. And, you know, and we do fall into that too, you know, like what are other people doing, and what does their journey look like? And, you know, and then that evil little thing called comparison likes to,
mm-hmm.
like, creep in, and it digs roots of, potentially digs roots of envy and jealousy, and why isn't this, you know, happening for me, and it's happening for them. I know we've talked about this before as well. And that stuff doesn't happen when you willingly come in and out of the quiet, being prompted to come in and out of the quiet, so that you really are only hearing the Lord's voice. Because when you're hearing him, you know, you see other people's stuff going on via social media or just life in general, and you won't have that moment where you're looking at other people's situations, and you won't hear all that extra noise that's out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I, you know, when you were talking a few minutes back about putting off the quiet time or, you know, not setting aside the time. I mean, I was getting whispered the lie of, you know, it won't matter. Even if you go into it, you're not going to get anything, or because like, I am so looking forward to seeing more and things like that. You're not going to get that revelation. You're not going to get that sight. You're not going to get to step any further into that. So why bother? Sending me home so tired from work where I wouldn't, you know, I would just be so tired that I'd be like, what's the point, you know? And of course, on the days where I just, you know, came up against the enemy and said, it doesn't matter, I'm still going to go in because I just want to sit in his presence, you know, massive things happened. And I was truly grateful for this time over last week when like I was legitimately not looking at anything for the 3 days. And it just really felt so good to turn my attention to him in every single moment and just hear him. And it really brings me back on here in a different way. I absolutely love connecting with everyone. I absolutely do. But just as Lori said, you can be looking at all these little puzzle pieces that are coming up, you know, through this stream. And it's just, you know, it's little bits of puzzle pieces and they're not connecting. And so then it does just become, it looks like someone just like took a box of jigsaw puzzle and threw it up in the air. And you're just kind of going like, well, where's my piece? And how can I connect it to this? And our connection to anything is through Christ. You know, there's no way to get anywhere unless it's through him. So we can't be looking at all those puzzle pieces. Absolutely. Do I want to hop on, support other people who are stepping out? You better believe it. I absolutely do. Even when I know that a word is not for me, I'm going to say, hey, wow, you know, that's so good. That might not be what I need to hear right now, but that's what somebody else needs to hear. So I'm going to love it. I'm going to share it, and I'm going to let it speak to the people that it needs to speak to, you know, at that time. But, you know, when we're like looking at things like that, the scripture, I think it's, Corinthians 3:4-6. I just had a connection come up to me, which I'm going to think back to. Remind me I had a connection. You know, Corinthians 3:4-6, we say this because we have confidence in God through Christ. There is nothing in us that allows us to claim that we are capable of doing his work. The capacity we have comes from God. It is he who made us capable. And there, like what I was just saying about the puzzle pieces, we can't be worrying about all these different puzzle pieces and how we will connect them. He's going to do that. What we are capable of doing in any capacity comes from him, and we need to allow him to line that up, line the pieces of our puzzle up. And I just noticed this, but this scripture, Corinthians 3:4, 5, and 6, it is completely lining up. 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I don't know if anybody else gets numbers, but I am like a number fanatic. Like numbers speak to me in every aspect of my life every day. And I mean, that right there just tells me, you know, he is the one to line up our puzzle pieces. And so we need to be staying, you know, if we're staying connected to him, I know that my feet will be guided on the right path. I know that I won't be led astray into wrong directions. You know, too much of this world can really just take us off of the beaten path. And then we are distracted and we're not going into our quiet time, or it takes us way over here because we need to be listening to this prophetic word and watching out for this. Well, God's not telling you to watch out for that in your quiet time. This person's telling you that, and that person might not be the voice that you need to hear at that time. And I always just think back to when he said, you know, I'm with you. When you pay attention, I will not let you falter. You know, he'll always help me move without hindrance. He'll always help me. He'll make every step visible, and he'll bring clarity, you know, to those steps. It's here when I surrender everything, so that he can do with me as he desires. And that's what I want more than anything. And that's when, you know, when he's doing what he wants to with my life, the voices that I'm meant to listen to will only confirm those things. And so sometimes we do have to shut out that noise. I really want, coming in and coming out of that quiet place, like you've titled this broadcast. It's in that place where we are just with him that we get back on track and we're reflecting his love to the rest of the world. And with that, when I was writing that down, I just had this vision of, mirroring and reflecting his love when we're spending time with him. When we're out there in the chaos of the world, I literally saw the world ricocheting and bouncing off of me because I was standing in the open fire of this world, and it's ricocheting off of me, and then negativity is coming off of me instead of God's reflection. And so we need to constantly be going back into that place, like I was saying earlier, where we're cleansing ourselves in his presence and not in the presence of this world. And I think that's something that you and I both want to pay attention to, as we step forward. We want to be sure that, everything that we've said on previous broadcasts, God's brought it to light in one of our quiet times. He's confirmed it with the other one of us. We've had some time off here and there since November where we just didn't feel he was prompting us to hop online. One, we just hopped on and ended up, we were truly just hopping on to pray, and that ended up being one of our longer broadcasts. We really want everything that comes out of, when we're on here to be from him. And so I think both Amy and I were both talking about, as we step out of this very quiet place, I considered a fasting for me for those few days, but I truly haven't stepped back in fully on social media. I've come up with a new rule for me that unless I've had my quiet time, I'm not engaging. I might spend like a couple minutes, just taking a quick peek. But if I have the time, like, if I'm, riding with my husband throughout the day, I might take a quick peek. But if I'm home, I am not sitting down and looking at my phone or my computer or laptop unless I've actually experienced my time with him, because I need him to fully speak to me before anybody else does. And that's how I want to step into this new season. And, his resurrected life, I just wanted to bring new life into mine. So I just feel like we're both kind of thinking that, and that's how we want to kind of step into, the weeks to come and what we're trying to, listen to him for.
Yeah. And, and I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me today, when the Lord was like, I want you to talk about this. I really just felt like this was to encourage someone or some people to step back, unplug, and go into that quiet. Like, I really felt like there've been a lot of people just kind of teeter-tottering with, how much time and, how long do I need to do this? And maybe there's that fear attached to it, like it was for me. But I really just want to testify to you guys that if he's prompting you, he's going to tell you like where he wants you to go and how long he wants you to be there. And I also felt like maybe, how do I word this? Like, I really felt like maybe someone was maybe feeling like maybe it was more of the enemy trying to push you backwards into an old season. You've been trying to push forward into this new one. And although that could possibly be maybe for one person, I felt really strongly to tell you that it's not the enemy, that the Lord is begging you you are still moving forward, but he's begging you to step forward and go into that quiet with him. And I'm going to tell you something. Within the first 36 hours, because I can't remember what day I went completely off.
Monday, I remember.
Maybe it's the first day, I don't even know. But it was, I kind of had that fear, like I shared earlier. I had that fear that was attached to it. And the enemy loves to throw fear onto every single thing that we say and do, right? And part of that fear I'm just going to be completely transparent. Part of that fear was not plugging into all of the well-known teaching, prophetic voices, and all that stuff to help me get revelation. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Very right here. I've always struggled with I guess the right word is confidence in gaining revelation just on my own. I've always had a little bit of doubt attached to that. And I guess maybe it's even within the first 24 hours of me just completely unplugging. The Lord just dropped a massive revelation bomb on me, and it just left me completely undone. Here I go. It left me undone because he's saying, no, this is where you get your revelation.
Yes.
You know, it's not anywhere else. And your confidence needs to be in me. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have a Bible degree. You don't have to have the Bible memorized from front cover to back cover. I give you revelation. I am the one that gives it to you. And I'm telling you, what he does in that quiet, he does that refining, and he ripped off that fear that I had going in. And it will do the same to you. I really, whole broadcast tonight, this whole conversation is just to encourage those who
mm-hmm.
teeter-totter with going above and beyond that set time in the morning or that set time in the evening, to just unplug, pull away, and just retreat into him and let him pour into you, because he's going to give you that revelation. He's going to give you that confirmation. He's going to answer all those questions that you have for him, that you've been looking on social media for. You've been looking at this prophet, this prophetic word, this, and this, looking for the answers that
yes.
only he can give you.
Amen.
Now, prophetic voices, they can come along and encourage you, but he is the only one that will give you the answer that you need and the answer that you're searching for. And I cannot tell you, I mean, and that's why I still haven't fully come back on social media, because now that I've stepped into it, that is all I want. You know, everything else is great. It's kind of like having, you know, maybe a bite or two of dessert after the main course. Like, I'm after the main course, and that is with him in the quiet. And I just, like, I was telling Anne Marie with this whole like massive revelation bomb, I don't have the words to articulate it. Like, I have been chewing on this thing for like a week plus, and I still don't have words to articulate it. And that is, yeah. Thank you, Lori. It's priceless. And so I want to encourage you to just ignore the fear that it's the enemy doesn't have power over you. I just need to say that to you too. He doesn't have that much power over you. He cannot push you back into an old season unless you give him permission.
Amen.
So don't give devil as much credit as you're giving him. Don't give him that much credit. You've got more power than that. And just know that the Lord is pulling you forward, moving you up, moving you higher into this new thing, into this launch. But he's going to have you pass through that quiet intimacy before the next thing.
I always feel that like there's just this thrusting forward, or this new growth, or this, you know, that comes after a time like this,
yeah.
You know, and it's just been truly, you know, in the spirit that's happened with me over the past week. And then in the natural, things started to begin to, you know, burst forth, you know, for, you know, thinking in that respect. And it's just been amazing. I liked what Sarah said up here, where she said, it's amazing that social media is exploding with God's voice, but basically we just need not replace it. You know, it's great that, and, you know, and that's where we're talking, like, we absolutely want to be speaking what he wants us to be speaking, but we can't stop listening to what he's saying to us either, you know, and we can't fit into a box the time that we're able to listen, you know. And I was really struggling with that because Marty and I were having so many long days that I found myself giving up my quiet time where he would be revealing things to me for me, and just going into my quiet time for Thursday night. I would need my quiet time for Thursday night. And then I was missing everything. I felt so desperately lonely in all of that. And it wasn't that he wasn't speaking to me. He still honored me and talked to me and gave me wonderful things. But there's a difference in the intimacy that you receive when you're seeking him just to be with him. And so that's the other thing, besides the fact of just, I will not engage on social media until I've had my time with him, because he gets it first and foremost. But you know, I want to be listening just to what he has to say to me. I don't call, you know, you, Amy, to hear 20 other people talk. You know what I mean? I need to call him and listen to just him. That just makes me think of a commercial we have locally that says, he's calling, will you pick up and answer? Sorry. It's one of those commercials that's always on. Oh my. But I don't know. I'm excited. No.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm just excited as to where this new fresh feeling, this refreshment is going to take us. You know, like, I just, all of us, meaning everyone that's on here on this broadcast, that I just feel that as we all step into this time of, you know, like I said, cleansing our palate, you know, to say that, where we really get to allow him to wash us clean of all of that noise and just refresh our spirits and let us step into this newness. You know, I don't know, there was just I was driving down the road today and it felt like so many things turned green overnight. And I'm not joking. Like, I literally just yesterday was like, I cannot believe it's April and everything is still brown and gray. And literally the winds came through here, blew shingles off my roof, and it's like the world brightened up overnight. And it felt so good that happened. What are you saying here, Sylvia? I asked Papa once, why don't I get a word like other people? I heard him clearly, because you hear my voice already. When it's my time, you will get one to confirm what I have told you. So when I got a word from someone, it feels like a kiss. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It does. It just feels like a kiss from God. And I love that. And he usually confirms it in so many different ways. You know, I think that's the other thing too. We were talking about, you know, listening to different videos or reading different things. I know that God wants me to listen to it if it shows up in my email 3 times that day, or if I open Facebook and it's still stuck on that thing instead of having progressed forward in the feed, you know. And my niece laughs at me hysterically because I never push the lock button on my phone, and I have it so that it's set to never like shut down. And I have I have no password on it. So I'm constantly, like, you know, in the work that we do, throwing my phone in my pocket and stuff like that. So it should be like stirred up all over the place, like crazy. And when I pull it back out and it's still in the identical thing and I haven't pocket texted anybody or something crazy, I know that he's speaking to me through that person. You know, I hadn't listened to a particular voice in a very long time because I knew he wasn't speaking to me directly. It wasn't that corporate voice that was speaking to my circumstances for a long period of time. And, you know, like I said earlier, I would still support this person, but I wasn't listening to the voice. Well, here the voice came up in my feed like literally 3 times the other day. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And then I finally realized, no, you need to listen to this. And oh my goodness, it was so spot on. And it was just like refreshment to my spirit. And it was amazing. So definitely. And yes, Sarah's saying a prophecy should be like a game of snap. God says it, you hear it and someone else says snap and confirms it. Yes. Yes. So good.
Yeah. Earlier when you were talking, the Lord reminded me of this verse that I was reading earlier today in Romans chapter 11, verse, I just lost my place. Verse 16. Thank you. Is it? Yes, verse 16. If the part of the dough offered as first fruits is holy, the dough is 1/10 offered. As first fruits is holy, then the whole batch is holy. If the root is holy, so are the branches. Now I know this is talking about tithe. The 1/10, first 10%, first fruits is holy, and so that first 10% being holy makes everything else holy. And what is holy, the enemy cannot touch. So as you were talking, I mean, I know this is talking about tithe, but tithe can be so much other than just finances, you know, and we're talking about our time, our quiet time. And what if our quiet time is part of our tithe? We're giving that 10%
Mm-hmm.
to Lord, that quiet moment for him to just make us holy.
Amen.
And to give us that revelation. Then how much more are we going to walk out throughout our day, throughout our lives? Everything that we do and everything that we speak is holy and untouchable from outside forces. I mean, that's just like, whoa, okay, yeah. That's what that is, you know, and that's how we live our lives. And that tithing in the quiet, that's our offering, our giving back to God what he's given us. He's given us time, so we need to give back our time.
Yes.
It's not a works thing, it's a worship thing. And you know, I want my life to just be in response to heaven and heaven's promptings and all of that, you know. Everything else is like what I said earlier in that 1 Corinthians 13, you know, that clanging cymbal, gong, all the noise. I don't want my life to be noise to anybody around me. I don't want noise to myself. I don't want to be noise in heaven. I want my life to be that worship, that tithing, that giving back already what is God's that he's given me.
Amen. And this, what Amy's talking about when she was pouring out like what God was speaking to her that day, it just wrecked me. It was just so amazing and powerful. So I'm really praying that she can stick it out there in writing for everybody, because I think everyone's going to glean from that. It just was such a huge revelation. And I'm so glad that you brought that up tonight, because that, I mean, it really pulls together everything that we were trying to say tonight. I just wanted to say, you know, Sarah Wiseman, you know, put so much of this together so well in a link that I shared yesterday, and we're going to share it again in the link to this broadcast. But she had preached at her church maybe about a month ago, a few weeks ago anyway, and she was speaking on intimacy and how it's directly linked to our identity, integrity, and inspiration. And, you know, I was thinking about it, and, you know, with our identity, I don't want to stray from who created me and of who he created me to be. I don't want to stray from that, or the purpose that he designed just for me. As far as integrity, I want every word, every interaction to come from a place of truth. I want to align with the integrity of Jesus at all times, not being swayed by the noise that's out there. I want to reflect his righteousness and not the righteous of this world. And and when she pulled in inspiration, I want to be kingdom inspired. I want to be God inspired, spirit inspired. He created the magnificence of this world, and there's not a more inspiring person or being that I want to be within this world. And so that's why I seek the intimacy with him, is to step into all of those things that are revealed to us in that. And if I can just say, please spend an hour with Sarah Wiseman in this broadcast, this podcast that she sent this link to me in. She sent it because apparently that week we were discussing something. Our notes pretty much aligned with the notes that she had already gotten in her quiet time with God. It was like so confirming to both of us, and it was just amazing. And so she sent me the link afterwards to say, hey, can you believe this? And it was crazy because I didn't get a chance to listen to it then. I'm terrible. Amy asked me if I had something to listen to some music today. I'm like, no, I don't have that. Well, I didn't have whatever it was to listen to this podcast. And I pulled it up and then got distracted and I never got to it. So Sarah the other day said, Anne-Marie, did you have a chance to listen to that yet? Well, it actually turned out that it blessed me. The timing of her reminding me to listen to it probably blessed me more than if I would have listened to it a couple weeks ago. It was massive revelation after revelation after revelation. It is 1 hour packed full of just absolute power and revelation. So again, we're going to share the podcast in the comments below. I shared it yesterday. It's intimacy and how it is brought into identity, integrity, and inspiration. Oh, Suzanne, you have to put this app on your phone, and I can even screenshot the app that I had to get. It's a free app in your app store, and it came on. Yeah, Sarah, I'm going to listen to it over and over again. I actually wish I could go to your church. Like, I want the podcast every week, please. At least when you preach.
Yeah.
So it was just really, really good. So I don't know. Did you have anything else, or?
I think we pretty much covered it. I didn't know if there was anything specific that we can pray for anyone. That I guess I just want to just kind of speak that revelation over you guys, that you move in the promise, that you hear heaven's whispers to, go into that place, even if it's the most quote unquote inconvenient time.
Yeah.
I love that, the Lord's timing is never ours. His perfect time always feels like our last minute. And sometimes it may feel or seem as though it's not the most convenient time, but when you respond in that moment, right when he says it, and you don't delay, you get so much treasure out of that time. Yeah. I mean, he still, dumped out onto me over this past week, despite the fact that I kind of bickered with him a little bit, that I was being a little apprehensive. But I wasn't apprehensive for too long, because I recognized, that I really wasn't hearing from him. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all I really want anyway. And I know that's what you guys want too. So I'm encouraged after this broadcast. It's just so good to just sit and chat with everyone and know that, we all go through it. We all struggle with things sometimes. And, like I said earlier, sometimes the thing that we walk through, that we struggle through, is then once you're in the middle of it or coming on the other way out, the Lord uses that to have you turn around and encourage others with. And that's really what I saw for this broadcast, was just to encourage those that have been wondering, has it been an attack or has it really been God? And I really just felt strongly that, like I said earlier, don't give the enemy that much credit, that the Lord's pulling you still out of that old season. He's still launching you forward. But he's going to pull you through that quiet time before he sets you out.
Yeah. And I just always feel like there is that quiet time before there is that bursting forth. And it's happened time and time again. And sometimes it's a realization at the last minute, when it finally comes to us that, oh my goodness, this is it. And I know we've talked about that a million times when we've talked about birthing and things like that, but it really is, there is that painful part that happens right before any kind of breakthrough. And first and foremost, before anything, I want a breakthrough in my intimacy with him. I want to be at a different level with him before I'm taken to a different level at anything else that I step into. I just absolutely want to know him to another degree and just understand him. And you can't understand him unless you're in that place seeking him. Yeah, Terry, you're so right. There are so many people. That's all we've been feeling in the spirit. Is just time and time again. So many people are so close to their breakthrough, and they need to keep speaking it forth, and they need to keep, their eyes on it. And, when you can't, number one, stay in the word and stay in your quiet time with God. And number two, absolutely stick around people that encourage you to do that. I mean, that is, you need to do that. Absolutely. Because I know Amy and I sometimes will go one day after the other. We're lucky. We seem to be on opposite days of who needs to encourage who to realign our vision. So.
Yeah, there's so many just right there on the cusp of pushing through and walking into that new thing. And, a lot of times that's when fear gets the loudest, and that's when distraction gets the loudest. I definitely battled with so much distraction before all this. And those are the things that will delay and abort the launch.
Yeah.
You can't allow that to come in and distract.
Yes, Naomi.
And we don't want to miss out on it. And it doesn't change the Lord's purpose on you. It doesn't change his timing of all of that stuff on your life, because he's going to open those doors no matter what, because what he opens, no shut. But his timing is going to be a little bit flexible, and your willingness to step forward. And because, you gotta shake off that fear and not allow you to, keep you stunted.
And someone
kind
up there,
of like,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Someone up there had said, so many people are speaking breakthrough. And I just think, sometimes that doesn't mean that, we're breaking through to the exact place that we have out there in our vision. I mean, if I look back at the last 2 years, I could tell you of 20 different breakthroughs I've been through. There are areas of breakthrough in our life. And, each one leads up to that big bursting forth into the ultimate breakthrough that we've been seeking. So, don't be discouraged if your breakthrough isn't that massive thing that you've been waiting for. It's not always going to be that. He's going to, bring you through some other things where you will experience that joy of getting through to the other side in smaller areas. And that's his training to be able to, steward the biggest breakthrough in the end, and what you're given, whether it's in ministry, in your job, in your family life, in, you know, in ministry, in anything at all, he has to train you with little bits. And so I've been very, very thankful for each little breakthrough. And I think that's when we go back to that suddenly word, and how we've said before, how, you know, sometimes these little things happen and we notice them, but we're kind of like, yeah, but I haven't experienced a suddenly. But then suddenly we turn back around and we realize we're suddenly here. And the reason it feels like it happens so fast is each one of those breakthroughs launched us forward. It launched us forward just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Because if it didn't, we wouldn't be in our suddenly. We wouldn't be further along that path to this ultimate breakthrough. You know, we would still be sitting back there. Oh man, I was just thinking, I don't know if Lori's still on here, but I was just thinking something you said yesterday. Oh, it brought a vision to my mind, and then it made me reflect on a word that Lori wrote, where, you know, when we're running that race, you know, oh, it was just this morning. Geez, my day seems so long. See there? It's suddenly tonight. You know, I was just thinking about like our quiet times and how we stop to like get that refreshment and things like that. Like, you know, it could be related to like a marathon runner and how they have their stops. But I know that Lori, it might have been a year ago, Lori wrote a word that God had given her when cars, the race cars, like NASCAR and stuff, when they're going around and then they have that time where they're kind of getting fixed up and all of that other stuff. You know, it's just you're going to have that time where you pause in the race and then you move forward, and then you pause in the race and you move forward. And, you know, those cars or that marathon runner are all getting refreshed in what they need, or refueled or whatever it is to launch them even further. And so we have to know that that's what happens. And yes, there is going to be breakthrough, and there are going to be several suddenlies, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying them.
I think, yeah, I mean, there's a
Checkpoint.
couple
Yes,
things I want to
Andy.
just say on that. We have in our tiny finite minds a picture of what we think our breakthrough should look like. And the minute that we do that, we place God into our box of something that we can understand and something that we can imagine. And we don't leave it up to his amazing creativity to bring those things to us. I don't ever want to do that. And I always encourage others to don't do that, because when you do, not only are you shrinking him down into something that's tangible, but it also opens the door for disappointment, and that disappointment breeds bitterness, and you don't want any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just based on my own experience of things that I'm still praying for, had the breakthrough that I was contending for, visualizing in my box, actually been handed to me when I started believing for it, I would not have been prepared to receive it. I wouldn't have received it well. And so our breakthrough comes in stages, and he never gives us more than we can handle. And he gives us everything that we can handle, and then it pushes us just a little bit above, beyond our comfort zone. But that's where he grows us so that we can hold something larger capacity. And so those that are just expecting giant suddenly thing to happen, even though there are things that do come about suddenly, I know we've said this in a past broadcast, our idea of suddenly is always a process in heaven.
Yeah.
And
it's not in our time, it's in his time.
Heavenly thing. It's always a process.
Yeah.
And you cannot sit there and get ticked off at God because this thing isn't manifesting right when you think it should, and all of this stuff. And trust me, I've had those conversations with him, so I know what I'm talking about. But you just can't. You can't. I mean, he understands when we're hitting the carpet and we're frustrated and we're desperate. We've all had those points of desperation. I know it. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. We all reach a point of desperation where you just need something from heaven to come. I get it. But in the same sentence, you have to finish that with, but I trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where you're living a fully surrendered life. It's painful. It's not comfortable, because trusting something that you cannot control is a very scary thing. But once you realize that his goodness overwhelms and overcomes all that fear and all that doubt, and that he is a good God and he will never leave you, he will never forsake you, he will never stop providing for you. I know we reach places of really hard things, especially when you're talking about finances and just the struggles of that. But in my own situations and others that I know, sometimes we put ourselves there and sometimes we haven't. And so we also have to put the reality of consequences on some of those things. That is just a cause and effect situation. And the Lord is merciful and he's gracious, and he comes in with his miraculous and loving nature, no matter what the situation, no matter what the consequences, and he redeems it.
Yeah.
But you have to live in that surrendered, fully trusting position to know that he gives you what you are capable of receiving. Not what you think you can receive, but what he knows you can receive.
Absolutely. And Naomi said this up here, an example: we could not drink a glass of water all at once, but a sip or a gulp at a time is what we can handle, even when we are thirsty to devour it. Father knows the measure that we need. It's so true. And as you were speaking, I kind of had this like thought about, so often we think about, we keep going back into past walks, and like, why is that coming around again? And it was almost like a little revelation there in that, I think back to a couple times where, our marriage might have been on the rocks due to different stresses from the outside, a lot of it being financial, some depression, things like that. So let's just say like 2010, I thought like, oh, this is good. We broke through this one area, and now like everything is going to be great and wonderful. And then like 2 years later, you see that, what? I'm walking like this again? Like, no way. And then like 2 years later, like it's worse than it ever was. And you're like, why? And I just kept thinking while you were talking, like, maybe we re-walk those same mountains, because we do have to be patient to break through and receive what we're going to get out of all of that training. But maybe sometimes it's so often in that same thing, because if we've already had a taste of that training, we're not going to be as fearful as if it was, oh my, now I've had a lot of different things happen to me, but when I really look at some of the things that have been repetitive, whether it's been finances or those few times in my marriage where it was like, really, like we have to walk this again. Yes, there's a fear in walking through that. And it's all for the purpose of growth, and it's all for the purpose of bringing to you what you wanted, But there's this, I don't know, when you've kind of walked through something once at 1 degree, when the temperature gets turned up, you don't get as scared and throw in the towel and run screaming and crying away from what is leading you even further into your training to reach that ultimate breakthrough. Because I think about, if I would have stepped directly into that third phase of the issues in our marriage, we might not be together. So God was slowly training me how to walk through these things, so that when it got to the biggest one, when I was coming out of my depression and Marty was like full force into the worst phase of his ever, had that come first, we may not have ever made it through any of that. But although I was scared, I didn't run from it, because I knew that God would give me the power to get through it. And I knew, it's almost like I already knew the plays. I already had the playbook in my hand. I already knew what tools to use. And I pulled those tools out and I used them more forcefully, and I used them with a new authority, and I used them knowing that there was going to be victory on the other side of that. What did she say? Like the analogy of slowly boiling the frog, but in a good way. Oh my goodness, Sarah, that's hilarious. Yes. But I just was thinking about that, and you know, there is an ultimate victory to be won in so many aspects of our lives. And I know, Agnes's broadcast last night went on about finances, and there's so many of us that struggle with that. And sometimes it's by our own hand, and sometimes it's by the hand of another, and we don't know what's come against us, but we want to be on the other side of that, and we don't know when we're going to get there. And then we're like, oh my gosh, if exactly, Sarah, that's freaking me out. That is so right on. So right on. I like how she has the clause. I do not condone cruelty to animals.
Disclaimer.
So, I'm just sitting here going, for that breakthrough in finances, why wouldn't you walk that same mountain and that same mountain and that same mountain to train you so that when you are given that amount that you need, or that breakthrough that you need in the finances, or that debt you need cleared, or whatever it is, that you know exactly what you're going to do with it. You have the strategies lined up. And then that goes to, gotta have another disclaimer. Oh my goodness. That just goes through to a word that has been speaking to Amy and I over the last week, and both of our lives kind of simultaneously in ministry, but also in our own personal lives, as far as the strategy of how we're looking at things and taking them on now. And God's really, during this quiet time, been really kind of bringing that to us, and he's been making known his strategies. And if we weren't sitting in this quiet place and listening to him, we wouldn't see that confirming word out there telling us to do that, but we wouldn't be hearing him in our quiet time releasing those strategies to us. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, you walk into a store and you see that person that you thought of that might be part of that strategy. And then you're like,
yeah,
whoa, he really meant that. He really wants us to focus on this area and connect with this person and step forward in that. I've been wrecked by him this past week, and it's been so worth it to be in this place of fasting. And you're so right. Your walk and breakthrough is also someone else's strategy. And that's exactly what you were saying earlier, Amy.
Yeah. I mean, it's the wisdom that you gain, and you're stewarding something that you can't just hoard it. You got to pour it out. You have to be that heavenly funnel. The Lord's going to take you something, teach you, give you wisdom and understanding of it. And then you just dump it out to others. Because that's like helping others up and out of the situation that they're in, or give them strategies to get to, where they're trying to get going too. As you were talking, Anne Marie, I had this vision of this mountain, but it had like this corkscrew path going up it. And every time you passed around, you were going up further, but then you would reach the spot, and then down below was that situation, that point of view, but yet you're up higher. And then you go back around, and each side of the mountain gives you a different point of view. But as you're seeing the same views on each side of the mountain, you get back, you're up higher.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. Like what you were saying.
That's crazy, because
a deeper.
I was seeing the same mountain. I literally was, because I was just like, we keep walking the same mountain over and over again. I may have even said that.
You did say mountain. But I immediately saw this corkscrew path on the mountain, and each got around to that one spot that had that same view out to the valley.
And you're like,
you look down and see the path that you walked here and the path that you walked here, and and here's the great thing about that corkscrew path: you're going up higher, and that path gets a little bit more narrow each time you go up, but you're not scared of it. You're just walking confidently in it, and you're taking in the views, and you're taking in the wisdom, and all of it with it. And there's only someone following behind, like we were saying earlier. Pour it out. You've got to be that heavenly funnel.
Absolutely.
And pour out that. Eventually, like you said, Amory, that path is done. You've already, like that game, a game, you pass all the levels and you beat the game. You're done. You don't have to pass the mountain anymore. You have the victory. But it does come in stages. You have to, you can't just go from kindergarten to college.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people expect. They expect kind of like that Santa Claus God that, I've talked about before, that they just expect all of this stuff to just suddenly appear, and then they're ticked off when it doesn't. And, you just have to understand that even our suddenly manifestations, they are heavenly process.
Well, and you think you get to the top of that tipping point of the mountain, the top tip of it, and it tips over. What's the shape of it? A funnel.
Yeah.
A funnel to pour out heaven. Terry said up there, if we saw what God was doing, then we would take it out of his hands and try and birth it ourselves like Abraham and Sarah. And I think that's so true. We would think that we needed to do this connection and do that connection. And it's so funny. Like this week, I literally had this vision of this strategy of connecting with this person in our own personal life about something. And I was like, what? I'm not sure. Maybe not, blah, blah, blah. And so, but I decided to wait and allow God to bring that about. And he did, he brought that person actually to us. And it was amazing to see that happen. It was just, it's divine. It's just so good. I was just looking down here. Sarah said, I was going to say it's pretty much just fasting, showing God he's worthy of sacrifice, clearing our plate of clutter so he can fill it with his glory. Amen. Yes, loved Agnes's story on the strategy God gave her about school. Oh, yes. Suzanne, that was powerful. That was powerful. Yeah. It was really good. You know how to share Periscope on Facebook, right? Because I don't know how to do that yet. I don't know if you shared that last night or if you'll share it. Sometimes you share it from one to the other. That's a good one. We should share that link below because that was really, really good. Got to catch.
I don't know if Periscope changed or not, but it used to only be good for like 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
That go away unless it allows you. I don't know if it allows you to archive now or not. That's something we'll have to ask Agnes.
Yeah, Agnes.
But
when you
that was a good one.
When you change that over to your Facebook page, Agnes, does it stay there or does it disappear after 24 hours? Because that was really cool what Agnes did. And sometimes that's like a faith activation, and I truly believe in that whole faith activation thing because when I step into something, like I already believe it's going to happen. And when that was like a year ago when we were waiting for our business to kind of pick up after the winter, it was so scary. And I just believed we were walking into our promised land. And so I got up every day and I had milk and honey. And I literally poured honey in to my milk every day and just believed I was in the, promised land and activating my faith with that. And, from that point forward, we stepped into more and more and more in our business, And again, God brings us around those mountains a couple times to train us how to steward what we're given in those areas. And so we have to rewalk some stuff. It all comes together. You have walking ground for others and God works through you with what you experience for a greater revelation of who he is in you and for others. Suzanne, I'm tired of going around some of my same old mountains. Me too, Suzanne. I'm with you, sister. Sarah said, yes, TD Jakes does an amazing sermon on eagles, the way they take flight in circles and levels. Ooh, that would be good. Sometimes we think we've gone back to level 1, but we're actually at 11 on a whole new level. So true. So true.
Yeah. I think there's this quote it brought to mind this. I think it's from Joseph Prince, where he says, unbelief is a high regard for yourself, and faith has a high regard for God. And that he said, faith. This is a different quote. He said, faith has a. I'm going to mess it up. Faith has a good opinion of God, and faith in him. I'm going to find it. Hold on. Faith will not leave you in disappointment. It was something like that. Hold on, because it was so good. I don't want to misquote it.
No, that's great. Agnes, I don't know if you were on here, Agnes, when I talked about Sarah's ministering podcast, but you definitely should catch that. That was pretty powerful. We all just need to be in church together one Sunday.
My God. Yes.
Wouldn't that be amazing? So
that would fantastic.
While you're looking for that, I can just kind of fill people in on, what we're talking about doing in the weeks to come.
Yeah.
Amy and I it was nice to, hey, Agnes, she'll send it to you, I'm sure, but I actually posted it on my page yesterday evening, and we're going to post it in the link today. It was on intimacy, identity, integrity, and inspiration. Anyway, so in the days to come, we want to stay true to always listening to what God, puts on our hearts to share. And we are going to try to stay with our Thursdays so that, you kind of can expect us coming. But don't be surprised if some Thursdays that we're not announcing that, hey, we're just going to hop on for some prayer time, or maybe some declarations and things like that. If we're still sitting in a place where God's speaking to us in an area that we know that we're not really ready to release yet. And maybe some Thursdays we may end up staying quiet. And if something is really tugging on our hearts and God's really speaking to us to share it, you may find that we'll announce that we're hopping on earlier in the week. We'll give you plenty of notice, but we might hop on earlier in the week in place of our Thursday. So don't be surprised if it doesn't switch it up. It doesn't mean that we want to step away. It doesn't mean that we're trying to step away or it's too much, or we're just wanting to stay with him in this and what he did over this period of time. And I don't think it was any mistake. I really feel like that November through March, every week, really, I don't know, it just really kind of spoke to both of us individually. I know that a lot of you are saying it's so great to get on here and listen to what we're saying, but what Amy and I got out of it personally from God in it was so much more for us, and how he spoke to us and used us. And we just want to stay true to how he wants to use us. So things might be switched up, but we're going to be spirit led. We're not going to disappear.
Yeah.
We'll try to be on here Thursdays at 9. That's a time that kind of works for us, but don't be surprised if sometimes, look at that. Mark showed up too. Marty and Mark showing up, but don't be surprised if it, doesn't get switched up from time to time. And we might, pop on, that when I used to do lives, I used to just pop on when I felt spirit led, and we definitely want to do those too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have the quote, and then I think we'll just close it out.
All right.
So faith always has a good opinion of God, and God always makes sure faith is never disappointed.
That's awesome.
I love the quote because it is so true.
Amen.
And that's just the life. It's that faith and it's that trust to, like I said, that fear had me almost missing out on that revelation he had sitting there waiting for me. If I let fear postpone and almost abort that, I would have missed it, or I would have delayed it. And I don't ever want to be in that position. So
thank you all so much for joining us. I mean,
yeah,
we really appreciate you sticking with us through that quiet time. And we pray for each one of you, that,
yeah,
as God speaks to you, that you step into that quiet place and you experience a deeper intimacy and given more revelation by him and strategies. I know, we're all seeking that.
or we want to start adding, bringing people on. We talked about that too.
Yeah.
There's so many amazing voices that you guys join us all the time. You guys have some amazing things to share, and we want to bring you in on that.
Yes, and that's part of it. We need time to be able to practice on, because we both kind of have a little bit of kind of opposite crazy schedules with work and kids and things like that. So we need time to be able to practice on that, and then we want to get you guys hopping on here with us and sharing. So thank you
Yeah.
all so much for joining in, and thank you as always for commenting. And I'm sorry that they distract me, but I love them, so keep them coming and just let them
Yeah.
distract me. But sometimes you'll just have to remind me where I was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we love you all.
Love you guys. Have an amazing day, Sarah. Evening, everybody else.
Yes.
Love you.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
Good night, all. Love you. Bye.